Hey, what's up guys? Welcome to another exciting design tutorial with UXmate. This video is going to be a continuation series of animations in Figma. If you haven't checked my previous video on animations in the Figma, be sure to check it out because this video is going to be more on the advanced tricks and techniques of animation in Figma, and the other video is more on the basics, how to getting started with animations in the Figma. If you haven't done any animations yet, I would recommend go ahead and watch the other video because it has, step-by-step instructions on how to create animations using frames, how to create animations using components. Today we'll be doing a little bit complex animation. So let's not waste much time and let's jump into the actual tutorial file. You'd be kind of surprised, okay, we don't have anything in the frame in this video. No worries, we are going to create it from scratch. Let me just zoom in out here a little bit and let me quickly create a shape for you. So I'll demonstrate on that shape. Even if you also guys, if you haven't checked out my video on the creating or on the basics of shapes and shape tools in Figma, be sure to check it out because that is also going to be one of the helpful videos for you to create these kind of shapes very quickly without wasting much time. I'd put that link in the description for your reference. You can refer it after this video. So what I have did is we have created a leaf here. You can call it whatever you want. So let me just pull it out of the frame for now. Let's try to just frame the selection. I'm just doing it a little bit center align of the frame. It doesn't matter. You can keep it as you can keep it whatever you want. It is just in personal preference. I'll convert this into a component. So I'm creating a component out of it. Let me name this a little bit fancy NM01. Doesn't matter again. I'll create a variant of it. I'll add another variant. And I'll double click on the variant 2 and I'll be doing a little bit of rotation. So I'm just plotting out the basic structure of an animated component and then we would be going into much details of it. So instead of on click, let's do it after delay and probably 1 milliseconds because I want to start animation instant as soon as my frame is loaded. Then I'd be having a smart animate and then let's have a linear as of now and let's do it as a 600 milliseconds for now. We'll not do a loop back, we'll just have a one-way animation. We would use R to reload the animation. Let me just pull in this component on the frame and play the prototype of this frame. It takes some time to load first time. So if you see, it is rotating around the center of the object because that is what the behavior we were expecting. So how it is doing, we have two different properties or two different variants of a component which you can treat as frames in the animation. So this is your first keyframe, this is your last keyframe. What is keyframe in animation? Keyframe animation is whenever you change any of the properties which you want to animate on a timeline, that particular time period on the timeline is called as a keyframe. That is again, that is not a standard, that is not a definition of keyword. That is just why I'm trying to explain you what does a keyframe means. So what we have done, we have created a start frame, we have created an end frame. So these are our two keyframes, okay, and then whatever animation Figma rendering in those keyframes is a computer generated animation. In old schools as in like when the animation was invented by Disney, how they used to do, I'm not saying animation is invented by the Disney because animation is way beyond Disney. If you see the old pictures in the caves, those were also kind of having motion in it, though the pictures were static, but they used to, you know, have that life in the pictures. They used to create multiple images. In the caves, they have carved multiple frames of an instance, for example, and then when you try to combine all those instances together, it is going to give you a animation kind of feeling. So yes, our basic animation is ready. So let's now try to make it a little bit complicated, or not complicated, but a little bit interesting. Now it is rotating from the center, and definitely a leaf is never going to be rotated from the center. So what we have to do, we have to change its pivot point. So I'm not sure if you are aware or not, but unfortunately Figma doesn't support Figma doesn't support rotation, changing the pivot point. So I'd be doing, you know, I'd be reversing the rotation for both of the objects. Now what I'll do, I'll just do a little bit of cheat here to fix the pivot point. How we would be fixing the pivot point? We would be using rulers. And we are not fixing the pivot point, basically we are creating a reference for us where the particular pivot point is. And now you would be, you know, understanding why I have created that extra circle on the leaf. It is not a hole in the leaf, but it is just for my reference. It is just a guide for me, and once I'm done with my animation, I'm going to hide the guide basically. So let me double click and let me select both of the objects together, and then let me do the rotation again. Okay, I'm doing like almost around 45 degrees of the animation, and now I'll be changing the position of the object to match the center of this intersection of the guides. So what we are doing here, we are trying to find out the center of the object or of the pivot point, and then we are rotating the object, and then again we are moving the position of the object so that that particular point on the object is matching the center which we had earlier. So now if you see in both of the objects, it might be a little bit deviated, but no worries, you can fix it when you are doing, you know, actual pixel perfect animations. But now if you see, and now if you try to rotate this, you would be finding out, okay, it is now rotating around the pivot point which I have defined. So now what you can do, let's say, okay, I don't want to, you know, rotate it somewhere in the center of the leaf. I want to do it at the bottom of my leaf. I'll just delete those temporary points, or I'll just hide them in my component, and then I'll adjust my guides to match the bottom of the, you know, this leaf kind of thing. So it is not going to be a pixel perfect, because if you try to zoom in a little bit, it is somewhere in the middle of the, you know, pixel. So however guides are how guides are working in the Figma, so these are, you know, individual units, these are individual pixels, you can say, and then it could be either at the beginning of the pixel or it could be at the end of the pixel. It cannot be on the, like, somewhere in the middle of the pixel. So no worries, that minor error, like it is not going to be, you know, affect anything in the animation. It is going to be very minor deviation, because we will not even able to notice that deviation until unless we are zooming it out, zooming it in for like 200, 300 or 400x. Generally, you know, there is again a cool tip here, guys. If you are working for the print media, then whenever you zoom in something around 100%, it is going to be actual preview of your print, basically how it is going to look on the paper. And then if you try to zoom in around 200x, you would be still able to, you know, see those minor details with the eyes, like when you zoom in near about 200x. But when you try to zoom in more than 200x, then our eyes cannot catch those minor elements when we print them or when we, you know, do it for the screens. This is something I had learned way back in my, you know, graphics design school. So let me just rotate this a little bit, and then same thing, I'll adjust the center of this particular leaf somewhere at the intersection. So again, it is not going to be as perfect as, because as we saw, like it wasn't already on the center. But yeah, something like this, that would be more than enough. Let me jump into the prototype and let me try to rotate it. Now if you see, it is rotating at the bottom of the leaf. So it have created that nice animation which is starting at the bottom of the leaf. So now let's try to fix the timing of the animation. So what we have did now, we have completed the basic structure, basic setup of animation, how I want to animate the leaf. But now let's try to add a little bit life into it. So how we can do it? We can, simply zoom in a little bit, go in the prototype, and now go into the animation settings. Now if you see this animation, take a look at it. It is very straightforward and very, straight linear motion. It is not as per the, how actually as it is a linear motion, it doesn't have any friction, or even if leaves are in the air, still there is going to be a little bit friction around it of the particles of the air, or dust particles in the air. So there is always going to be friction, and that has to be easily visible in your animations as well. So let's try to do it with a little bit easing. So how we can do easing? We can change the animation curve. We can do ease in for now. Let's try it out how it looks. So now if you see, it is starting slowly, it is starting gradually, and then it is directly going to the end point. Now let's try to do a ease in, ease out. Okay. So if you notice, it is starting a little bit slowly, it is picking up a little bit speed, and then it is going back again slow. I guess you're not able to notice it within the 600 microseconds. Let me do it near about, let's say, 1 second or 2 seconds. It is never going to be a realistic animation. It is never ever a leaf is going to take 2 seconds to complete near about like 40 to 45 degrees of the animation, but just for our reference, I'm creating it. So you would understand how it is, starting gradually, and then again taking up the speed, and then again ending up gradually. Let's try to exaggerate this curve a little bit, and then let's go in the custom bezier. So this custom tool, this custom curve in the animation allows us to define the timing of animation however we want. So let's say I don't want to let's say I want to have more exaggeration in the ease in and ease out of my elements. So how it is going to do? So if you see, there is a very gradual start, again it picks up a sudden speed, and then again it goes very slow at the end. So this is what slowly easing in, picking up the speed, and then slowly easing out. Okay, so let's try to do a little bit cartoonish kind of thing where we'd be going to exaggerate a little bit. I'm just having a curve something like this, where my animation is starting in a little bit of linear fashion, going in a linear fashion until this, and then slowly going to the end. And now let's say if you want to start it quickly, how we can do it? We can move this curve more on the linear direction. It would be straight until this, and then slowly ease out. Okay. Also, if you see, I have let me just exaggerate a little bit. So now if you see this, you'd be able to notice that bounce back, or so there is an animation principle, or it is kind of derived from the actual physics. So where there is action, there is equal and opposite reaction, right? So wherever we are having some actions, we should be having a repulsion of it, or a reflection of the action. So if you see, my object is going there, and then again it is settling back. So now let me speed up this animation a little bit. Instead of 2 seconds, let's do it 1 second. 1 second. And now let's see this. Now if you see, it is going there, it is kind of hitting, and it is reflecting back, right? So let's do it near about again like 600 milliseconds, and then adjust this curvature a little bit, like instead of exaggerating a little this much. Let's just do a little bit of exaggeration and then have a smooth curve on the beginning as well. See, you can try to manipulate this curve however you want. If you want to do a start like a anticipation as well, you can do the same thing on the beginning of the curve, so it will go back in the time, not in the time, but yeah, it will change the value in a way where you would be having the anticipation. So what anticipation means? Anticipation is like we are giving a hint to the viewer, okay, some action is going to take place. So let's say if you have to hit a punch, so what do? Basically you pull yourself a little bit back, or you can say when you want to run harder, what do? You pull yourself a little back, and then you suddenly take up the speed. So that's what the anticipation is. So if you see, it is a little bit it has a motion, like it is little bit going backwards and then moving forward. Let me do it with the slow space so you would understand it in a details. See, it is going back and then coming forward. So let me do one thing. Let me draw a guide here so you would understand what I'm talking about. So let's say this is what my center point is, where my oops, sorry, my bad, I was in prototype mode, and let me just have this line somewhere here, and now let's try to see how it does. Okay, and let me do adjust the timing as well. So instead of starting the animation immediately, let's have some more delay. So let's have near about a seconds of delay, and then animation will take 2 seconds. So now if you see, it is going a little bit behind the line and then it is going forward. So when you try to add those minor interactions in your animations, then your animation becomes a little bit more realistic. It starts to relate your viewers with actual physics around us, and then it adds more life into the animation. I hope you are still following me. If you have any doubts, be sure to drop them in the connect, because it is going to be kind of tough if you are a beginner. Let me just again do a 600 and let me play this animation again. So now if you see, it has a nice animation. Okay, so now let's try to do a little bit a little bit further exaggeration in the animation. And now what we'd be doing, I'd be just removing this after delay here for a while, and then I'll be adding one more variant between these two. Let me just do a auto layout in the components. I'm not sure if you are aware of this as well, but yeah, if you are creating the components, you can still add auto layout in this frame as well, which will help you to keep your components organized. So let me just move this in the stack. Now this is my first frame, this is my second frame, and this is going to be my third frame. So what we are going to do here, we are going to have a little bit of scale animation. So I'll be having one more guide here, and then again one more guide here. Let me be a little bit precise with the guides. And then okay, this guide was for the second leaf, so let me adjust this something like this. So now what we are going to do, we are going to have a scale up animation. So for that matter, I'd be just scaling it down a little bit, and I'll be moving this at again like the center as we did it for the other animation as well. I'm just scaling it, oops, sorry, my bad. Okay, so when I'm starting my animation, it would be like this. I'll be try to be more precise with this. And if you remember or if you see what I'm doing, I'm not doing with actual variant of the component. Okay, I'm doing it objects within the component. So if you see, I'm everything doing with this intersect object. I'm not doing anything on this default or variant 3 or variant 2. So be sure you are selecting proper objects, and then when you are doing animations, then you are doing it on the components, not on the internal objects. That is something when we often do some mistakes, and then we keep on finding out why my animation is not working on. So I have again do a after delay. I'll keep a little bit bandwidth at the beginning, and then my animation would be near about 600 seconds. I'll keep the same curve, and then I'll be doing a rotation after it is scaled up. So how we are going to do it? We are going to do again same like after delay, but in this case we'd be having very minimal delay. Let's say we have 200 milliseconds, and guys, these numbers are you can never define these numbers until unless you go ahead and try these numbers, because animation is very picky, very again, like let's say even if you take the same example, but if you take these leaves like, and if you decide to animate them in a cartoonic way, then these numbers would be a bit different. If you try to animate them in a realistic manner, then those numbers would be definitely different than what you have done in the cartoonism. Even let's say even if you try to attach this leaf to some stem, then depending upon complexity of the surroundings, the backgrounds, these numbers are going to change. So the effect which you want to derive, you have to figure out how you want to do it. So let's just test it out with these numbers. So now if you see, we have a small scale up animation and then a rotation, and if you notice, when it is scaling up, it has a little bit exaggeration, sorry, anticipation. So it is slowly contracting and then expanding suddenly. And when you see the expansion, it also has that exaggeration where it expands further, and then again it contracts, and then it goes to the rotation. So let's just do this curve a little bit exaggerated here, just for fun, guys. And be sure to always play with these things, because until and unless you play with these curves, you will not able to master those curves. To be frank, I haven't did any kind of trials or dry runs before recording this tutorial. I am doing this on the fly, no notes, nothing is there. So I'm just trying to play around the objects. So now if you see that scale up, it has a little bit bounce in it, and then it rotates. Okay. So with this, you can create complex animations, dynamic animations with ease, because the trick here is you have understood how to add the life to the animation with the use of curves, and then you have also understood how you can use the guides to create your pivot point wherever you want on the object. So keep on practicing these small animations, and with the time you would be able to create any complex animation within the Figma itself.